Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's story is about a welfare office clerk who tried to deny a struggling family a $10 prescription for a sick child. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. But it will do you no good. This is actually my dad's story, and it's decades old, but it's too good not to post. My dad, a single father with one kid, met my mom and eventually got married and had kids. Back then, my dad was working in manual labor, but he hurt his back at work and was off for several months. Money had gotten tight to the point that my parents literally had no extra money to spare. We were a loving family, though, so we were okay as long as we had food, which we did. But then I got a bad ear infection and needed antibiotics, but my parents had literally no money at this point. Being in Canada, we had a welfare system that you could apply for if you were down and out, so my parents headed over to the welfare office where all this started. They go up to the counter and enter Karen. My mom says, "My son has an ear infection and has a $10 prescription. I need help paying." Karen gets the family details and comes back saying, "I'm very sorry, but you don't qualify for that because you have an employable male in your household." My parents protest because my dad's back is injured, but Karen isn't having any of it. My dad hadn't been to the doctor yet because there wasn't much they could do for a back injury other than give pain meds, so without a doctor's note, they didn't believe he was actually unable to work. The lady insists there's nothing they can do. This pisses my dad off to no end, and he's not going to let his new son suffer from an ear infection. He says to Karen, "I want an appointment to apply for welfare for myself only." Karen says, "You can't do that." My dad, getting angrier by the minute, says, "Are you denying me my appointment?" Karen says, "You don't need an appointment. You don't qualify." My dad replies, "So you're denying my appointment?" Karen says, "Well, no, fine. You can have an appointment, but it will do you no good." The appointment for him to apply was scheduled for the next day. Enter my dad again, this time with a new rental receipt from a house for rent near a beautiful lake in our town. He says, "This is my new rental I found yesterday. I'm unemployed and need my rent covered." The lady says, "You can't do that. You're an employable male. You need to work." My dad says, "Well, I'm moving with my son and I can't work since I'm a single parent." The lady laughs and says, "You can't just take one kid and move out." My dad replies, "Well, I can no longer live with my wife. I'm leaving her, so now she's a single mom and qualifies for the medication." Karen, still thinking she could screw my dad over, says, "You can't just break up with her so she can get welfare." "Excuse me?" my dad responds. "I can break up with her because her feet stink or she has bad breath. I don't need a GD reason to dump her butt." Karen huffs and says, "Well, maybe she'll qualify, but you don't qualify for that new rental. You would need to be a single dad. And you can't just take one child and leave claiming to be a single dad." Out comes the court document stating my dad has sole custody of his first son from his first marriage. This letter states he has custody of his first child before his second marriage, so he and his son are leaving. Now he's a single dad and qualifies for welfare. This pissed off Karen. She knew she'd just been played, so she tried her best to make the situation difficult for my dad. "Well, if you leave her, you're not allowed to go over there and hang out." Again, my dad replies, "Excuse me? I have 3 kids with this lady. I'll go over and visit my kids any damn time I like. You don't get to tell me when I can visit them." That was the finishing move. Karen had lost every aspect of her case. My dad did qualify for rent, and she was forced to pass him his emergency check he had just applied for. My dad, after getting his check for hundreds of dollars, turns to Karen and says, "Now my ex would like to apply for the $10 medication. She's a single mom without an employable male in the house, so she should qualify." He turns to Karen and snarks, "But it'll do you no good." My mom got the medication, and he rented a cabin by the lake for several months. All the while, me and my sibling hung out there and enjoyed our summer cabin. Good job. Screw the gatekeeping of the welfare system. It's supposed to exist to help people exactly like your family. I'm glad you got your summer at the cabin. And our second story. Months after she lied about me, I got the perfect payback. This happened about 3 or 4 months ago. I work at a military clinic as, at the time, a front desk receptionist. There was a lady that came in one day demanding that a doctor sign a sports physical form for her teenage daughter right away, or else her daughter wouldn't be able to continue playing sports. Thing is, her daughter had lost the form that had already previously been filled out by the doctor. I explained to her that this more than likely would not be done right away due to the doctor's busy schedule and the fact that particular doctor wasn't in yet. She insisted on waiting, even though the nurse had also said the same thing, that it may not be done right away. Finally, she decided to go home and wait for them to call her when it was done. Luckily for her, the doctor took the time to fill out the form as soon as he got in. The nurse called her and let her know that she could come and pick it up. When she got there, I handed her the form and told her to have a nice day. Immediately, she asked to speak to a supervisor. I kindly told her she could go to the second floor and speak to the patient rep. She proceeded to have a fit in the middle of the waiting room, claiming that I was rude to her and that I had a problem with her waiting for the form. Not true at all. Both I and the nurse told her that she was more than welcome to wait, but didn't recommend it due to the possible long waiting time. She started blurting out some BS about her own kind not looking out for her. We're both AA. She then went to the patient rep and lied through her teeth, LOL. Security who'd stepped in sided with me because he'd witnessed the behavior that day, and before apparently. The same lady'd been escorted out of the building by security in the past. Needless to say, her complaint was thrown out, but here comes the cherry on top. I still work at the same clinic. Yesterday, the same lady came in causing trouble again. Again, she wanted to speak to the patient rep. But guess who the new patient rep is? Yours truly, LOL. You should have seen her face when she walked into my office. She definitely recognized me, and of course, she was the one causing trouble again. She told so many lies, just like she'd done to me months before. I, of course, remained professional, and once I completed my investigation, which lasted all of 1 hour, I started the ball rolling to have her banned from the clinic/trespassed. She hasn't gotten the call yet, but boy, would I love to be a fly on the wall when the higher-ups call her and give her the good news. Nice job handling both encounters in such a professional way. You sound like a great employee. And I'm sorry you have to deal with such nasty customers. And our next story. New house, new neighbors who thought my pool was theirs. Earlier this year, I bought a mid-century house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It had been sitting empty for close to a year, so it needed some updating before I moved in. My contractor was already gutting the kitchen and fixing the pool area while I wrapped up business in another city. One Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed at 7:15. It was my contractor. "Hey, when are you moving those cars?" "What cars?" I asked. I wasn't even living there yet. He told me there were 2 SUVs and a sedan in my driveway, all lined up like they belonged there. I jumped in my truck and drove the 30 minutes over. Sure enough, as I pulled up, a couple from the house next door was casually walking toward the vehicles. They told me with straight faces that they'd been parking there for months with the owner's permission. I informed them I was the new owner and that arrangement was over. They acted shocked, so in an attempt to be neighborly, I agreed they could keep using the driveway for 2 weeks max on the condition the cars were gone by 6 a.m. every day so contractors could work. That lasted 4 days. The next Saturday, I showed up for a walkthrough with my contractor and there were 4 cars crammed into the driveway. I called and reminded them of our agreement. 20 minutes later, they shuffled outside, claiming they thought weekends didn't count. I corrected them very clearly. The very next morning, I showed up with a small trailer full of furniture for the garage. Again, cars. I called, got voicemail, and texted them that I'd be calling a tow truck. No reply, so I did. 45 minutes later, 2 tow trucks backed in. That's when the neighbors magically appeared, running out like the place was on fire. They managed to get the cars unhooked for a cool $300 in fees. At that point, I was done playing Mr. Nice Neighbor. I called my contractor and had him bring in a gate installer. A few days later, the installer called to say, you guessed it, the driveway was full again. I told him to give me 10 minutes to call a tow. The cars were gone before the trucks even arrived. The gate went in that afternoon, and I kept the opener. The neighbor's husband came out yelling when I picked it up, so I called the police and let them handle it. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The following Saturday, I went over to accept an outdoor furniture delivery. Near the pool, I noticed a child's float and a towel draped over a chair. I figured maybe they'd blown in from somewhere and tossed them out. The movers came later, and we spent the day unloading. Around 9:30 that night, my daughter and I returned from dinner and walked straight into a scene that made my blood boil. The neighbors, mom, dad, 2 teens, and a friend, were in my pool, using my brand new patio furniture, drinking beers. When I stormed outside and started yelling, the dad casually told the kids, "Go home." The kids ran to the back corner of my yard, grabbed a loose section of the fence, and walked through it into their own backyard. They had cut and rigged the fence panel so it could be removed at will. My pool had basically been their private club all summer. Police came within 15 minutes. The dad was arrested for trespassing, destruction of property, and, surprise, an outstanding warrant. The 20-year-old son also had a warrant. Both went for a ride in the back of a cruiser. I had to replace 83 feet of 8-foot privacy fence because they'd wrecked the posts, runners, and pickets, took them to small claims court, and won the full $3,800. Haven't seen a dime yet, but last week a big "for rent" sign went up in their yard. Guess they finally realized the free pool, free parking, and free reign over my property days were over. Totally. You didn't get neighbors, you got squatters with a pool schedule. From oops, neighborly mix-up to arrests and a judgment? That's not inconsiderate, that's audacious. They weren't confused, they were entitled. And our last story. Spikes on the road. I've been the owner of the ranch for 6 generations. Our land isn't just property, it's a way of life. Pastures, fences, trails, stretches where my friends and I sometimes practice shooting at targets far from any houses and well within the boundaries of our land. And there's always someone who doesn't like that. In our case, it was Karen. At first she grumbled, called the police, summoned inspectors, and corresponded with various committees. The police came, checked the maps, verified property lines, and each time said we were on our own land and there were no violations. That only stoked her hatred. The day I pulled the footage from the trail cameras, the whole thing stopped being a neighborly dispute and became a criminal matter. My wife and daughter were driving to the store, a simple trip, a little out of town. Suddenly the tire blew, the car skidded, we narrowly avoided a tragedy. A few meters further, there was a drop, and if the car had slid a bit more, who knows how it would have ended. The girls walked away shaken, but when I inspected the wheel, I found 4 sharp welded spikes stuck in the tire. Clearly not something that would have just rolled out from the road. I walked the shoulder and found a few more of these homemade mines. Then I checked the trail cameras. And there she was, Karen, wearing gloves, bending over a bag and scattering spikes into the dust by the roadside. I was holding the photographs and could barely feel my legs. My heart was pounding like someone who'd just heard a gunshot. At the station, I handed over the flash drive with the video, showed the spikes and the marks on the road. The officer taking the materials pressed his lips and said, "This is no joke. A child could have been in that car. This is a deadly hazard." They asked me to file a statement. I wrote everything down in detail, noted that there was a child in the car, and attached screenshots and logs from the trail camera. The police obtained a search warrant, took metal samples for forensic testing, and found fingerprint marks that matched prints previously associated with Karen's complaints. She had earlier filed reports and signed them. When they summoned her to the station, she was shouting across the yard, "They're harassing me! It's a setup! I only wanted the shooting to stop!" But the video was merciless. It clearly showed her dropping the sharp things, glancing both ways as if to make sure no one was watching. Officers led her off the property in handcuffs amid cries of, "This is unfair!" But the video remained evidence. At trial, the prosecutor brought several charges. In our story, she was officially charged with willfully creating a situation that endangered the life and health of others, creating a dangerous situation on the road that could have resulted in death or serious injury, intentional damage to property, damaging the vehicle by placing objects that caused a hazardous condition, hooliganism with the use of an item capable of causing serious bodily injury. The homemade spikes were treated as a weapon that created a risk of fatal consequences. The prosecutor spoke quietly and clearly in the courtroom. She didn't just scatter rocks. This was a planned action aimed at obstructing, maiming, or even killing. And there was a child in that car. We cannot ignore that. Her attorney flailed, trying to claim the evidence was fabricated and that the footage was a selected clip. Karen herself cried and screamed, her speech nervous and unconvincing. I was scared. They pushed me. I only wanted to frighten them, not kill. But the judge replayed the recording several times, and the marks on the spikes, the fingerprints, and expert testimony spoke against her. The sentence in our story was severe, exactly what I asked for. The judge found her guilty on all counts, guilty of willfully creating a danger to life, of intentional property damage, and of hooliganism using a dangerous instrument. She was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment under the state's penal system, a hefty fine, ordered to pay restitution for material damages, car repairs, towing and recovery costs, court expenses, and was given a restraining order prohibiting her from approaching my property and my family after her release. In the courtroom, she fell to her knees and wailed, "No, this is unfair!" But words didn't help. The sentence was clear and cold. 7 years, the maximum penalty provided by the statutes applied in the case. We all fell silent. My daughter covered her eyes and gripped her mother's hand. My wife stood with her jaw clenched, but in her eyes there was that quiet certainty. Our people were safe now. After they let her out of the courtroom, a strange quiet fell over our lane. No late-night complaints, no phone calls, no "I'm just concerned." No one dared such brazenness when they saw there were consequences. The conviction, the sentence, the fine, and the restraining order did their work. 10 years have passed. My daughter's grown up and sometimes asks me to tell the story again, and I tell her how we prevailed, not through revenge, but because we gathered the evidence and let justice take its course. I wrote this story at her request. Let it be known what happens when someone's righteous malice crosses every line, and how sometimes proof and patience bring criminal accountability down on the person who fancied themselves judge, jury, and executioner all at once. The spikes on the road ensured that Karen will no longer hear gunshots from the ranch because she'll be far away, spending a long time behind bars. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.